Hello everyone, today is 17th of November. My name is Sahil and welcome to the newspaper analysis. Now guys, first of all, let's have a look on today's GS folder. So today we will be taking a quote from the Muhammad Yunus, the Nobel Prize laureate and the one who perfected the idea of the microfinance. Guys, Muhammad Yunus says that poverty is the absence of all human rights. The frustrations, the hostility and anger generated by abject poverty cannot sustain peace in any society. For building stable peace, we must find ways to provide opportunities for people to live decent lives. Now, guys, this particular idea is very much relevant into the present times. And if you are following, then, guys, in 2020, even the Nobel Prize for Peace has been given to the World Food Program. And basically, this particular thing is also a recognition that if the hunger or the poverty of people will be satiated, then it will be directly leading to the peace. So, guys, Muhammad Yunus's idea can be directly correlated with this year's Nobel Peace Prize also. So, guys, we can utilize this particular idea in GS paper number 2, where the poverty has directly been mentioned, as well as in GS paper number 3, GS paper number 4, as poverty is not only an economic problem but also a moral problem where a large chunk of population is not having even the means for a dignified and a meaningful life. So guys, this is all about this particular thing, and now let's take the newspaper analysis. Now guys, let's first of all take the overview of the articles that we will be taking up today. Guys, before that, I would like to tell you that you can join our Telegram channel, as there every day I provide the PDF of the daily news current affairs as well as the infographics which we are using. It is also provided there along with many other articles. Now guys, this is the first page of the Hindu newspaper, and we can see that this entire page is filled with the news which is not actually very much relevant. Now guys, here we can see that the Moderna, the American MNC, has also declared that their vaccine is 94.5% effective against the COVID-19. However, guys, the vaccine is still very far until it becomes available for the general public. Now, guys, as the Moderna vaccine is concerned, few days back, if you remember, we also discussed the Pfizer vaccine which was there. But the Pfizer vaccine had a problem that it was to be stored at very less temperature, which was not actually possible into the Indian conditions, and the huge problem was there. But the Moderna vaccine is having one advantage over it, that it actually doesn't needs that low temperature, sub-zero temperature. So therefore, it is more of a practical vaccine when compared with the Pfizer vaccine. However, guys, nothing more important. Then, guys, as we are moving here, we can see that the Shaheen Bagh protesters wants a review where of the Supreme Court judgment, where the Supreme Court called them as inconvenient. Then, guys, here we can see that the winter session of the parliament might not be there due to the rising number of cases. Further, guys, into the regional pages, nothing important with respect to the exam has been given. Then, guys, we reach to the editorial page. Now on to the editorial, guys. This is talking about the RCP. However, already yesterday we had taken up this entire issue from the very scratch. Then, guys, this article is talking about the Bihar elections, not actually important for our exam. Then, guys, it is talking about the Pulwama attacks and how the Pakistan is using a propaganda. Then, guys, this particular article, it is talking about the policy framework that is required for the technology. A very good article and some very good insights will be looking here. Then, guys, the next page, this particular article, it is talking about the Andhra Pradesh problem with respect to the capital. However, guys, only with respect to the Andhra Pradesh specific information has been given. Moreover, substance has not been there into this particular article, so not very much relevant. Then, guys, this particular article, it is talking about the status for the women. A very good article for our GS paper number 2. Very good information has been given. Then, guys, this particular article, it is talking about the journalistic freedoms. A good article, some good content has again been given here. Then, guys, moving forward, we can see this particular article, it is talking about the Kochi Mangaluru pipeline, and for the infrastructure we will be seeing it. Further, there is not much important information here. Now, as moving forward, we can see that again the political news have been there. Guys, here we can see that the government wants the FDI compliance for the digital news firms. So further we will be seeing this particular article. Then, guys, the showcase page, not important. Then, guys, into the world page, here the Ethiopian crisis have been mentioned, so this entire Ethiopian crisis will be seeing it. Then, guys, onto the business page, nothing very substantial with respect to the UPSC exam has been given. Now guys, let's move to the Press Information Bureau. Now guys, on to the PIB, there is one important news which has been given, that is the news with respect to the Deepam which had signed an MOU with the World Bank. So we will be seeing it. After this guys, there are some other articles also we'll be seeing from other newspapers. Now this particular article has been taken from the Business Standard and it is talking about the learning poverty. So some very good inputs have been given. After that guys, this particular article has been taken from the Livemint and it is talking about the new tourism that is coming, the revenge tourism etc. has been discussed. So guys, these are all the important news articles that we will be taking up today. So that's it, and now let's take the newspaper analysis in detail. Now guys, this particular article is a kind of a coordinated discussion with the Nobel Prize winner Abhijit Banerjee, and here we will be seeing the problem of learning poverty and some of the key suggestions from the Smart Buys report published by the World Bank. Now guys, first of all, I give you some reference what has happened right now. As we are seeing the pandemic, the impact of pandemic onto the education has been worst and there is huge impact onto the learning outcomes. Now guys, even before the pandemic, there was a kind of a learning poverty where the people were not getting the quality education, and even if the people were getting the quality education, they were not getting a particular kind of learning abilities. There was no enhancement into the knowledge outcome. Now this particular thing has been made even worse by the present situation of the COVID-19. Now guys, because of this particular thing, the World Bank and the UK's Foreign Commonwealth constituted a global education advisory panel, and the task of this advisory panel was to provide that how the succinct, usable and policy can be prepared which focuses onto the education, what are the types of investments are needed into the low and middle income group countries so that there is no further increase into the learning poverty. Now, this particular advisory panel was chaired by the Abhijit Banerjee as well as some other thinkers as well as educationists. And basically, they have actually published the Smart Buys report, which had carried certain suggestions. Now, guys, even if you are writing any answer onto the education, which is mentioned directly in our GS paper number 2, you can just give the reference of the Smart Buys report along with the annual status of education report that we had already seen. So guys, these kind of references first of all give a kind of an authenticity to your answer and make your answer copies little bit stand apart from the crowd or various other journalistic kind of answers. Now guys, what has been said into this Smart Buys report, we will be seeing this. First of all guys, it has been said that in order to improve the learning poverty in India, there is a reliance which needs to be given, that is the parents should be told that what are the benefits of education, because guys, it has been said that once information is given, it will change the attitude, and by such favorable attitude, the parents behavior will change and they will push further their children into the education, and at the end of the day, learning poverty can be reduced. After that guys, it has said that in India we often talk about the right to education whenever the learning is to be concerned, but the RTE is having serious flaws. Guys, it has been said that the RTE dictates a kind of a brick and mortar standard, that is what should be the kind of specifications of a class, what should be the strength length of a playground and all such kind of things. And RTE is actually not focusing on to the verifiable learning outcomes, which is the biggest criticism of the RTE. However guys, now the new education policy as 2020 has come, it now is talking more about the learning outcomes, so there is an expectation that the learning outcomes will be good and the educational poverty will be going down. Then guys, further the Smart Buy report has noted that the problem into our education setup is not the education for the young kids, because anyhow their gross enrollment ratio is very good. The problem starts into the older children who don't go to the school and they choose in some other kind of alternatives. Now, not going to the school, there is one issue, because many a times the secondary level schools, they are not into the vicinity. Into this particular direction guys, it has been observed that by bicycle for girls Yojana into the Bihar had shown a very important considerable result, and now the older girls are also going into the schools. So access to schooling not for the small children but for the older children needs to be focused. After that, guys, the report has published said that in India we have a kind of a strange fascination with the grades and not for the learning outcomes. It has been seen that in India, even if a student is at the level of the class 2, but if he is into the class 5, he will still be taught the syllabus of the class 5 irrespective whether he is grasping the things or not. So such a kind of a approach is not needed. The just focus need not to be onto the completion of the syllabus and scoring the marks, but inculcation of the education is needed to be focused. Then, guys, it has been said that into the present times it has been seen that various state governments are focusing that digital devices are needed to be provided to the children, because now as the online education is to be done, that particular thing is a problem, and they are providing them the laptops, the mobile devices, etc. But such a thing has been called as the bad buy, or a kind of a ineffective thing into the smart buys report. It has been said that just giving them the ICT devices will not be solving the problem until and unless you basically perfect the pedagogical style of the teachers, that they can actually teach via the online classes, as well as how to use these devices to the children as well as to their parents. Then, guys, it has been said that now a need of a pedagogical customized pedagogical approach is needed. You need to identify that what is the level of the student. You just need to forget his class in which he is studying, identify his level, and from that particular level you need to take him forward. And, guys, into this particular direction, the reference of the Mind Spark initiative has been given, which is working into the Rajasthan. There they don't look into the standard of a student but his mental abilities, and from there onwards they give them the customized education. Now, guys, into the report, the Vietnam has also been called as a good model of education. Now, often whenever we speak about such East Asian countries, for example, guys, many times Thailand has also been talked about as a kind of a success story into the healthcare model. So whenever such kind of countries are concerned, they are just ignored, saying that they are very small given the size of the India. But, guys, Vietnam can be comparable to the state of Bihar in terms of its population, in terms of its size. And simply it has been said that such kind of success models onto the state to state basis needs to be implemented, and the outcomes and the effectiveness needs to be measured. So, guys, this is all which have been suggested. And please, guys, do give the reference of the Smart Buys report, Global Education Advisory Panel, and please provide these particular dimensions if you're writing any question onto the education into the present times, because the pandemic will be the most important theme. So, friends, that's all about this particular article, and now we'll be moving to the next article. Now, guys, this particular article has been taken from the Live Mint, and it is important for your essay, your GS1, as well as GS paper number 3. So, a very brief reference we will be taking up here. Guys, often we see that into the economic revival or the economic growth, tourism has been called as an alternate pillar. Even the tourism has been called as the next big thing. Now, into the times of the pandemic, there were huge articles, reports which said that the tourism as an industry has been dead because of the pandemic impact. Now, guys, into the various articles as well as make into the magazines lately, a kind of a new trend is being emerged into the tourism. So, what is this new trend? The new trend is of the revenge tourism. Now, guys, it has been said that as the lockdown was there and the confinement in homes was there for the people, a kind of a pandemic blues were observed, where the people faced a kind of a frustration. And now, out of this pandemic blues, now just for the sake of traveling, people are going for the tourism, and this tourism has been called as the revenge tourism. But as the tourism has to be done, but at the same time, guys, people are driven by two considerations. Number one, their pockets are now limited because of the economic impacts which have come. Now they can't take up kind of expensive trips. Secondly, guys, there is also a concern that at the same time, little bit regard for the social distancing, safe destinations, etc. is also there. So what people are doing? People are now, guys, preferring the staycations. Now, what are the staycations? Staycation is an alternative to the vacation where a person either goes into some of the good properties into his city only. For example, the five-star hotels, four-star hotels, where he will just, or he or she will be just be spending the leisure time, or just they go in near to the cities into the range of 70-80 kilometers, where there are resorts and they will be spending a couple of days there. So guys, a kind of a revenge tourism and the staycations are becoming the new normal for the tourism into the post pandemic world. Please guys, keep this particular observation into your mind. A very prevalent question into either of GS1 or GS3 or even an essay onto such a line could be expected. So guys, please use this terminology. So that's all about this particular article, and now we'll be moving to the next article. Now, guys, this particular article is important for our GS paper number 3, that is the mobilization of resources. Now, guys, this particular article has been taken from the PIB, and here we can see that the DPAM had signed an agreement with the World Bank. Now, guys, what is this entire thing? So, DPAM stands for the Department of Investment and Public Asset Management, and it is under the Ministry of Finance. Now, this particular department overlooks the government's assets, government's properties which are there, and how those assets can be used, put to the productive usage. Now, guys, it has actually signed a kind of a memorandum of understanding with the World Bank, where the World Bank will be providing the assistance that a large number of properties which are lying idle, how they can be monetized. So, it is called as the asset monetization, because we had seen that into the past the revenues of the government has reduced so much. So, by this asset monetization, government aims to raise some money. Now, guys, what is asset monetization? For example, there is a land. Now this particular land is lying vacant, so this land can be leased, for example parking onto this particular land. The hoardings or the advertisements can be erected. This particular land can be given for some other kind of recreational activities. So when this particular land will be given, it will be raising some revenue, and this is nothing but the asset monetization. No guys, the asset monetization is being taken for the non-core assets of all of the major of the central public sector enterprises, that is the PSUs, as well as for the enemy property. Now, what is this enemy property? So, guys, see what happened. India had actually fought the war with the Pakistan in 1965 and 1971, and during these war, there were certain people who migrated to the Pakistan, and they have taken the Pakistani nationality. Now, as these people have migrated there, their property into the India was left, and government, by employing the Defense of India rules 1962, had acquired that particular property. So all those properties have been called as the enemy property. Now guys, for the enemy property, certain amendments were also done by the government in 2017, and the Enemy Property Amendment Act 2017 was also passed. So guys, with respect to the two types of property, that is the non-core assets of the CPSCs, and for the enemy property, the monetization will be done and the World Bank will be providing the assistance. So guys, this is all about this particular news item. Now guys, just keep one thing into your mind: always the resource needs to be utilized to its maximum of the capacity. If you have paid attention into your basic economy classes, then guys, there is the production possibility curve. Now the production possibility curve says that in any economy, only a kind of a limited kind of things can be produced, and even for the production of those particular things, all the resources which are there, they should be utilized to the maximum of the capacity. And guys, if there is any underutilization, then there will be basically economic losses to an economy. Now into this particular direction, any asset which is lying vacant is a loss to the national economy, guys. So therefore this particular thing becomes very much important. Now, guys, on to the similar lines, I will be asking you a question. See, there is one more legislation or one more mechanism which government has established for making the effective use of the economic resources. Please provide me the name of that particular initiative that government has taken up. Guys, please stretch, and I please request that please answer it into the comment box. What is that initiative which is also pushing forward the better utilization of economic resources? Please tell it. So guys, that's all about this particular article, and now we'll be moving to the next article. Now guys, this article has been taken from the Hindu newspaper, and it is talking as how the technology has become so much important in all the spheres of the economic activity. Now guys, this particular article is very important for our GS paper number 3. Now, the article says that the computer's growth and adoption has increased into the past few years. If the information based technology is now being used across all the sectors, you might be knowing that the robotics, artificial intelligence, big data, and all this thing has become very common to almost all the sectors. Guys, it has been said that if present we see the electric cars which are being made, they typically carry 100 million lines of a code. This is much more coding that is done into a Boeing 787 plane. So guys, here we can see that how the value addition is being done into these cars by an intangible service, that is the information or the data or all such kind of things. So guys, the information, the data, the technology, they have been fused with all the kind of goods as well as services. Guys, even the traditional industries are now facing a kind of an electronification. Therefore, it has been said that now the technology's recognition into all the economic spheres has to be recognized. Now, guys, as we are talking about this particular thing, such integration and penetration has actually not recognized by the government itself into their departmentalization. Now, guys, you might be knowing that the presently government follow the approach of the departmentalization, where the different tasks are looked by the different department, and actually it creates an approach of operating into the silos. And this particular thing basically doesn't helps to reap the benefit of the convergence and the integration. Now it has been said that such a approach will not be useful. For example, guys, when we talk about the Ministry of Transport, it is talking about the surface level transportation system. But as now the transportation is becoming intelligent, it is basically becoming driverless, it is being driven by the artificial intelligence. Ministry of Transport's integration with the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology is must. Secondly, guys, just see the drones. Now the drones are being used into the field surveys, they are being used for the crop assessment, for monitoring onto the traffic into the cities, so many things the drones will be used. So guys, how their use needs to be defined, for that also various departments, various ministries needs to come together. So basically it has been said that the technology is now, it will be a common thread which will be running across all the sectors, and therefore the government departments now need to be rethought into such a kind of a way. Now guys, even the industrialization or the industrial clusters should also be designed by government in such a way that the technology solutions, technology learning solutions, as well as the core manufacturing can be knitted into a one system. Now guys, there needs to be a cross disciplinary learning. The technology's fusion with the manufacturing and manufacturing's fusion with the technology needs to be taken up. And for this particular thing, the cooperation between the center and the state is required, that how such integration they will be looking forward. So guys, into the future of the manufacturing, such kind of considerations are needed to be taken up by the government, and the approach of integration is needed. So guys, this is all into this particular article, and now we'll be moving to the next article. Now, guys, this particular article, it is taken from our Hindu paper, and it is important for GS paper number 2 into the topic of the journalistic freedoms. Now, guys, the article says that the world around, the attacks onto the journalists are increasing. Even into the past few months, we had seen that there have been the attacks onto the journalists into Tamil Nadu, Madhya Pradesh, Jammu and Kashmir. And guys, if we talk about the World Press Freedom Index, which is released by the Reporter Without Borders, India's ranking with respect to the free journalism is decreasing year by year. In 2018 it was 138, and now it has reached to 142, which is a kind of a problematic thing. Now guys, it has been said by the United Nations that the journalism is the most dangerous profession into the world, and according to the UN estimates, from 2006 to 2019, approximately 1200 journalists have got killed. So basically, it means that every 4 days, one journalist is being killed for the duty that he is doing. And guys, due to such fear that the journalists face, even the Press Council of India's chairman had suggested that government should come out with a special law for the protection of the journalist. And guys, if I tell you one more fact, it has been seen that in 96% of the cases of attack onto the journalist, there is no conviction, and even the investigation is also not done. These matters are simply being ignored. But this particular trend is not good, because we know that the article number 19 has given a fundamental right to the freedom of speech to the press, and we also know that the free press or the free media has been called as the fourth pillar of the democracy. So basically basically preserving the journalistic freedoms is just preserving the fourth pillar of Indian democracy. So such a idea is needed to be taken forward. Now guys, the Maharashtra government needs to be appreciated because Maharashtra is actually the first government into the state which had formulated the Maharashtra Media Person and Media Institution Act 2017, which provides the freedoms to the journalist from the attacks. It has provided that any attack onto the journalist, it will be a non-bailable and cognizable offense, and it will be investigated by an officer not below the rank of the DSP. And it has also been provided that the 3 years term of 50,000 rupees fine can be imposed if there is any attack onto the journalist. And guys, even the Chhattisgarh government is into the final stages of formulating a law for the protection of the journalist. So guys, taking the cue from the Maharashtra and the Chhattisgarh, the central government also needs to take certain steps into the direction so that the journalistic freedoms can be preserved. So guys, this is all about this particular article, a very good reference for our GS paper number 2. So guys, that's it, and now let's take up the next article. Guys, this particular article has been taken from the Hindu newspaper, and it is talking about the women issues, which is important for our GS paper number 2 under the social justice. Guys, the 2020 year is monumental for many a things when the women's rights are concerned. First of all, it is a 50-year anniversary for the CSWI, that is the Committee on the Status of Women in India. Now, this Committee on the Status for Women in India submitted a report towards equality to the United Nations, and it was a very monumental task, and it propagated the women's equality. Moreover, guys, the 2020 is also the 25th year anniversary from of the Beijing Platform for Action, where again the women equality, the women empowerment issues were taken up very comprehensively. Moreover, guys, 2020 is also a year where we are seeing a pandemic, and this pandemic has called as a shadow pandemic for the women. So therefore, the women issues are now needed to be thought, they are needed to be given an attention, and even a kind of action is needed for the women. Now guys, when we are talking about the women, a very important issue comes, that is the women labor force participation rate. Now in India, the women labor force participation rate is so low that it is actually not resonating with the aspirations of growth that India is looking forward to. Guys, according to the periodic labor force survey of 2018 and 19, into the rural regions, the WLFPR is 26.4%, and into the urban areas, it is 20.4%, which is very less, taken up the OECD average as well as the average of the developed nations. Further, guys, there are not only the low participation of women, but even there is huge inequality on other fronts also. According to the World Economic Forum's Global Gender Gap Report, India is ranking 149 out of 153, which shows the huge inequality which women face into India. After that, guys, there is even the wage disparity. Wage disparity means for the same level of qualification and for the same amount of work, women are paid less. And such kind of wage disparity is huge, not only into the India but into the entire Asia at the rate of the 34%. Guys, in India, even though we have a legislation, that is the Equal Remuneration Act 1976, even after it, the women are paid less. And guys, now I will be taking up certain data which are very important for your examination. Directly you can use it into your answers. First is from the CMI, that is the Center for Monitoring of Indian Economy. According to it, 39% of women lost the jobs between the April and May, and it is less when compared to the male, because only 29% of the male lost their jobs. So it shows that women are always into vulnerable job sectors where the job security is not there. Then guys, the next data is from the NSS, that is the National Sample Survey. According to it, women have to work 3 times more during the pandemic. The unpaid work, the 3 times more they have to do. And according to the OECD, 6 times more unpaid work has to be done by the women during the time of the pandemic. And this shows the unequal status of the men and the women when the social obligations are concerned or the domestic household works are concerned. Then guys, according to the WHO, 70% of the global healthcare worker around the world are women. So the heat of pandemic will be faced even more by them, because guys, it has been often said that the frontline health workers are more vulnerable. So guys, women are much more vulnerable. Then guys, in India, the ashas are indispensable, and as ashas are also the category of the health frontline health worker, they will again be facing the problem. Now guys, even the government's response have been very much indifferent towards the women cause, and this particular thing can be observed into the three labor codes which have been passed by the government. So guys, government passed the labor code onto the social security, onto the industrial relation, as well as the labor code onto the health and workers safety. There just the ease of doing business has been focused, and no mention about the women concerns such as the women safety, women regard, women's equality with respect to the male member is not, it is being talked about. So guys, government needs to show the consideration towards the women, and such a kind of a laid back attitude will not be helping. And guys, it is now the time that the equality between the genders or equality between the sexes have to be recognized, not only onto the paper but also onto the spirit. So guys, this is all about this particular article, and now we'll be moving to the next article. Now guys, this particular article, it is talking about the Gale gas pipeline which has been just recently completed. Now guys, it is just a one liner concept, can be utilized into the answers related to the infrastructure. Here there you can give the reference. Now guys, this gas pipeline was designed to be operational from Kochi to the Mangaluru into the Karnataka, and it was a 444-kilometer gas pipeline, and it was originally conceived in 2009 and was to be completed by the 2014. However guys, repeatedly the delays with respect to the land, delays with respect to the environment, etc. were there, and now finally into the 2020 it is about to be completed. Now guys, towards the northern side, the intersection from the Chandragiri river was very much problematic, and there much of the time was taken. Now guys, this particular gas pipeline will be providing a kind of an energy boost to the entire of the Kerala region, and will be helping to achieve the self sufficiency with respect to the energy. Now guys, as we are seeing this particular gas pipeline, it bifurcates at the Kutanad into the Kerala, and one section goes towards the Mangaluru and other section goes towards the Bangalore. So guys, this particular project is a very important project, and as finally it has now been completed, so the gas security for the south can be preserved. However guys, you need not to go that what is the capacity, how much a million cubic meter of the gas etc will be transferred, not actually important for our exam. So guys, just a reference point we can utilize it. So that's it. Now we'll move into the next article. Now, guys, this particular article talks about the FDI limits that have been now imposed very firmly onto the digital news firms. Now, guys, if you remember, just 4 days back, we had discussed that the government had brought the OTT, that is the over the top platforms such as Netflix, etc., as well as the digital news media under the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. Now, guys, on to the similar lines, government is further pushing forward with the kind of regulations. Now government had said that all the digital news portals which are providing the news streams or the current affairs, they can get the maximum of 26% of the FDI. Now guys, originally this 26% cap onto the FDI was announced last year, but now again they have been repeated, and guys, actually a time has been given up to October 2021, that is all the news agencies or the news portals which are having a higher FDI limit, they needs to reduce it to the 26% by the October 2021. So guys, just that's a kind of an attachment. And guys, if you have not seen this OTT regularization, then please watch it onto the 12th of November newspaper. There we had covered this entire issue. So guys, that's it, and now we'll be moving to the next article. Now, guys, this particular article has been taken from the Hindu newspaper, and it is talking about the Tigray crisis which is going into the Ethiopia. So, guys, from the very scratch, we will be seeing this entire crisis and we'll see that what exactly is going on. Now, guys, first of all, focus here onto the map. So, this is the map of the Africa, and into the Africa here you can see the Ethiopia. So, Ethiopia lies and around the region of the Horn of Africa. You can see that here is a Somalia which is the neighbor, then there is a Kenya, after that there is a South Sudan, then there is Sudan, and here is Eritrea. Guys, please keep in mind the Eritrea, it is an important neighbor which we will be using here. Now guys, actually if I tell you that what is happening now, so the present issue is such that the Prime Minister of the Ethiopia, that is the Abiy Ahmed, he had launched an attack onto TPLF, that is the Tigray People's Liberation Front, which is a militia come political party. Now, guys, what is the issue? I will be telling from the very scratch. Now, guys, first of all, if you remember the world history, then first of all, the Ethiopia as well as Liberia, these were the two countries which did not become the colony of any of the European powers. They maintained their independence. However, guys, in 1936, actually, the Ethiopia came under the rule of Italy, and guys, Italy actually carried many reforms here into the Ethiopia. However, in 1974, the Italian influence was overthrown from the Ethiopia by a military denominated communist party which was called as Derg. And guys, from 1974 onwards, the military dictatorship started into the Ethiopia. And actually, to overthrow this military dictatorship, the TPLF was formed, that is the Tigray People's Liberation Front. And they led a kind of a struggle for so many years, and finally in 1991 the military dictatorship was overthrown. And in this entire thing, the Zanavi, he emerged as a hero, and the TPLF emerged as a kind of a nationalist political party. And guys, the Zanavi which I had just talked, he became the first elected prime minister in 1995, and for nearly 17 years, that is up till 2012, he ruled the Ethiopia. Now, guys, meanwhile, what happened? A kind of a coalition was built into the Ethiopia, that is the EPRDF. Now, it stands for the Ethiopian People's Revolutionary Democratic Front. You can remember the short form also. So, this Revolutionary Democratic Front was a coalition where some large number of political parties were there. But, guys, it was just the coalition onto the face. But in actually, if I tell you, then the TPLF was a major force within this particular coalition. And guys, the TPLF and the Zanavi, they is installed the ethno-federal structure. Now the ethno-federal structure means that the Tigray people were given more influence into the Ethiopia. Tigray is a kind of an ethnicity. Now guys, Tigray has 6% of the population but the most dominant power. However, apart from the Tigray, there are other ethnicities are also there. Now guys, as the time was passing, it was accused that the Zanavi had misutilized the office and had done the corruption and had increased his power. So all these charges were there. So what happened in 2018? The ERDF actually appointed the present Abiy Ahmed, the present Prime Minister of Ethiopia. Now, guys, when we talk about the Abiy Ahmed, he is also belonging to a specific kind of ethnicity, and he also was very much frustrated by the ethno-federal structure where the Tigray people were given much of the dominance. And Abe wanted to improve the power equation. And into this particular direction, guys, he taken up certain steps. For example, the first step he took was to reduce the influence of the TPLF. Large number of office holders which were belonging to the TPLF, they were removed. Now this particular thing irritated the TPLF. Then guys, he taken one more step, that is he formed a prosperity party. Now the prosperity party is nothing but the EPRDF minus the TPLF. So the coalition was there, but the TPLF was removed. Further, it irritated. Then, guys, the third step which was taken by the Abiy Ahmed was the postponement of the elections which were due, and the reason was given the present pandemic. And it further, guys, actually frustrated the TPLF. And finally, what was done? The TPLF attacked the federal military command into the Tigray region. Guys, if you see the map, this region is the Tigray region. So here the military command was attacked and their assets were seized. Now the Abiy Ahmed, he is just launching a counter attack onto the TPLF into the Tigray region. Now guys, if you see into the map, then we can see that the Eritrea is one of the neighbor around the Ethiopia, and it is also making a boundary with the Tigray region. Now guys, the Eritrea and the Tigray, they have for many a time they have been at the kind of a cross horns, and now the Ethiopia is also asking the help of the Eritrea that they help in removing the TPLF from this particular region. Now guys, TPLF in response have also counterattacked the Eritrea. So guys, this is the entire thing which is going on, and now it has been said that though Abiy Ahmed thought that into the soon time the peace will be restored and the TPLF will be removed, but guys, it is now being seen that a kind of a prolonged war is going to happen, and much of the problems are emerging here. So guys, it has been said that into the interest of the entire nation and seeing the present pandemic, the steps should be taken that as soon as possible this entire crisis should be end. So guys, this is all about this particular crisis, and we need to see that how it will be unfolding further. So guys, that's all about this particular news. I hope that you have understood this entire issue. So guys, that's all for today, and I hope that you are liking our initiative. Thank you so much.